You're at the dinner table, and someone brings up one of those fun facts that makes you feel small. Ancient humans, the ones hunting mammoths and sleeping in caves, had bigger brains than you do. Not smarter, not more advanced, just bigger. Literally bigger skulls, packed with more brain tissue than the one currently reading this sentence. That should feel wrong. We've got smartphones, satellites, and Wi-Fi. They had spears and fire. So how exactly did the primitive version of us end up with more brain to work with? Let's start with the numbers, because they're not small. The average human brain today runs around 1,350 cubic centimeters. 20,000 years ago, during the last ice age, the average was closer to 1,500. That's roughly the size of a large grapefruit compared to a slightly smaller one. Over thousands of generations, human brains have been quietly shrinking. And it's not just us. Neanderthals, our close evolutionary cousins, had brains that were, on average, even larger than modern humans. Bigger brow ridges, stockier builds, and skulls that housed more neural real estate than yours does right now. For a long time, this fact alone got twisted into a myth. Bigger brain, dumber species, since Neanderthals eventually went extinct while Homo sapiens didn't. But that logic falls apart fast. Sperm whales have brains roughly 5 times the size of a human's. Elephants beat us too. Nobody's arguing they're outthinking humanity. Raw brain size was never really the flex people assumed it was. What matters more is structure, connectivity, and how efficiently that tissue gets used. So if bigger wasn't automatically better, why did ancient brains get that large in the first place? One leading theory points to something brutally practical: survival math. Ice Age humans were dealing with predators, unpredictable food supplies, extreme cold, and constantly shifting terrain. Every single day involved threat assessment, tracking, tool adjustments, and social coordination just to stay alive. A demanding environment can select for a brain built to process a huge amount of sensory and strategic information at once. Compare that to your Tuesday. You're not reading wind patterns to find water. You're not memorizing which berries will kill you. Most of that raw survival processing has been outsourced to agriculture, to supply chains, to Google. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, though. Researchers studying this brain shrinkage have proposed something called the Self-Domestication Hypothesis. The basic idea: as humans began living in larger, more cooperative groups, something similar to what happens in domesticated animals may have occurred in us, too. Domesticated dogs have smaller brains than wolves. Domesticated cattle have smaller brains than their wild ancestors. In every case, the animals that adapted to cooperative, lower-threat environments needed less raw processing power dedicated to constant danger response. Anthropologist Brian Hare has been one of the key voices behind this idea, arguing that as human societies became more socially complex and less individually dangerous, natural selection may have favored brains tuned for cooperation and social reasoning over sheer, raw survival firepower. Think about what that actually means. Your ancestors' brains weren't optimized to be friendly. They were optimized to not die. Yours is wired more for negotiation, empathy, group coordination, reading a room. Less raw horsepower, more refined software. There's another angle here too, one that's easy to miss. Brain tissue is expensive, ridiculously expensive. Your brain makes up about 2% of your body weight, but burns through roughly 20% of your daily calories. In an Ice Age environment where a bad hunting season could mean starvation, carrying extra unused neural tissue wasn't free. It was a metabolic gamble. As human life became more stable, more social, more supported by shared knowledge instead of individual raw processing, that gamble started to shift. Brains that ran a little leaner, but plugged more efficiently into a group's collective intelligence, may have had the actual survival edge. That's the twist most people miss completely. This isn't really a story about losing brain power. It's a story about brain power moving outside your skull. Ancient humans had to store almost everything internally. Which plants were poisonous, how to track animals, how to start a fire from scratch, how to read the sky for weather. You don't need to store most of that. It's written down, searchable, distributed across billions of other brains and devices you can access in seconds. Modern neuroscience actually backs this up. Researcher Robin Dunbar's work on brain size and social groups found a direct relationship between neocortex size and group size across primates. suggesting brains partly evolved as social processors, tools for managing relationships and shared knowledge, rather than pure individual computation. So somewhere along the line, humanity ran a trade. Slightly smaller, slightly more efficient individual brains, in exchange for something enormous, a shared external brain made of language, writing, culture, and eventually the entire internet. You're not carrying less capability, you're renting an almost unlimited amount of it, stored outside your body, available on demand. Next time someone tells you cavemen had bigger brains, you don't need to feel small about it. Their brains were built for a world where every single resource had to come from inside one skull. Yours is built for a world where you're never really thinking alone. That's not a downgrade. That's an upgrade nobody remembered to update the marketing on.
If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Hit that notification bell for more. See you on the next one.